Hi, yes, Lindsay and Ann. I did donate blood today, and honestly, it feels amazing to know that just my donation is going to help 3 Central Texans in our area. Now, 25 News partnered with Carter Blood Care last year for a goal of 25 pints, and while that may have a nice ring to it, we are looking to beat that goal this year. That's when the officer made contact with Dean through his passenger side. The crews ordered Dean to turn off the car and hand over the keys. The officer used his left hand to reach for the keys, all the while his right hand was on his handgun. That gun was pointed right at Dean, with Dick Cruz's finger on the trigger. Now, as the officer pulled back with his left hand, his right hand also went back, causing the gun to go off. Dean was shot in the head. Now, after the shot, Dick Cruz pulled Dean out through the passenger side. He and other responding officers performed medical assistance until medics arrived, but it was too late. Michael Lorenzo Dean was pronounced dead at the scene.
He was shy in high school.
Kevin Ramirez was like any other teen boy. He had plans to get an apartment with his friends and attend TSTC. But on June 12, 2017, just 10 days after graduating high school, everything changed.
So he was going to work that morning and he was stopped to turn left and there's no turning lane. So he was hit at 70 miles and he was rear-ended at 70 miles an hour and thrown into oncoming traffic.
April received the call no parent ever wants to pick up.
He was going by ambulance, so we didn't know how bad it was until we got to the hospital. They told us the clouds were too low, so they couldn't get the chopper up.
Kevin was barely hanging on.
Whenever we got to the hospital, we were told he wouldn't survive. The doctors told us he wouldn't survive the surgery. We were asked if we wanted them to try. We were like, of course we want you to try. He's only 18 years old. Why wouldn't you want to try?
Serious crashes involving teen drivers are not uncommon this time of year. The time between Memorial Day and Labor Day is what AAA calls the 100 deadliest days for teen drivers.
And it's the summertime stretch where we see a spike in the number of fatality crashes that involve teen drivers. Specifically, about here in Texas, we see about a 12% spike in the crash rate from the rest of the year.
April believes the teen driver who hit Kevin was texting at the time of the crash.
I just get frustrated that people are still out there. You still see people out there texting and driving.
Distractions are the number one cause of teen crashes. Nearly 6 out of 10 teen crashes are caused by some form of distraction, or at least it plays a role in the crash.
Thankfully, Kevin survived the crash, but it's been a long road to recovery, both for him and for his family.
He had a traumatic brain injury. He had swelling on the brain. He was bleeding in his brain, and they took his skull out for 6 months. I'm now his caregiver. I get paid to take care of him. I was, working out at the state school. I've been out there for 17 years, and now I'm at home taking care of him.
Through it all, Kevin says he is blessed to be here.
Everything I've been through, I'm still here doing life. Just being with, it's just being alive is good.
He says no phone call or text message is ever worth your life or the life of someone else.
If it's important, people can pull over to the side of the road and pick up their phone. It's that easy.
Armbruster says good driving habits start well before new drivers are old enough to get behind the wheel.
So it's important for parents to be a good role model for their child even before it's time to start looking at getting a driver's license. On the other hand, it's important once they do get that driver's license that parents remain involved. Talk to your children about distractions, why they're dangerous. Talk to them about impaired driving, peer pressure, and why it's important to limit the number of passengers in the vehicle.
4 years later, Kevin is now living life to the fullest.
I know God got me through all of this, and you gotta praise Him for it. So I just like to have fun now, just not scared to do things anymore.
As for this year, he says he has one goal in mind.
Stronger, strength, muscles, and too small.
Sydney Isenberg, 25 News.
Like you said, Todd, vaccines are a key part in Abbott's reopening plan. Today, DSHS announced 1 million first doses are headed to the Lone Star State next week. Roughly 245,000 of those doses are the new Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine. Now, the state is seeing a drop whenever it comes to case counts and hospitalizations compared to our July record highs, which is great news. However, we aren't out of the woods just yet. Now, while there is limited attendance at the game itself, some dedicated football fans are making that trip out to Tampa. So let's go ahead and start at the home of this year's big game. Now, in Florida, specifically in Hillsborough, which is where Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are going to be duking it out in Raymond James Stadium. State officials there have reported almost 103,000 total cases for Hillsborough County. Now, if we take a look at their incidence rate, which is going to be per population, and that gives us a more even look, that is going to be about 8,375 cases per 100,000 people. But since most of us are staying put for the game, let's travel to the home of the greatest football team in the league and future big game champions in hopefully the not so distant future. So let's go ahead and switch it over to Texas. Now, since the beginning of the pandemic, Texas has seen roughly 2.13 million COVID-19 cases. Again, that is based on state numbers. There it is. Now, if we were to look at the heat map right now, what it's saying is most of those cases are going to be found in those metropolitan areas, so Dallas, Austin, and Houston. But what we want to look at is the incidence rate. That's going to be on per population. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And with that, we're going to see that there is actually faster spread along the border and into the panhandle. Now, taking a closer look here in central Texas, we're going to be saying based on the total count, again, those higher number of cases are going to be seen in the places that have the most population. So McLennan County, Bell County, and Brazos County would see those higher number of cases. But if we switch it back to the per population, that's how we're going to see where it's spreading, because again, it puts that population on an even playing field population-wise.
For those who have been in Texas for a while, you know the drill. You have an event on Sunday, but then you realize you don't have enough liquor. If it's the day before, you have plenty of time to run out and go get a few more bottles. But if it's on a Sunday and you come to this realization, you're kind of out of luck. Now, this isn't a new rule, but in the age of instant deliveries and alcohol to go, many are wondering if this rule is appreciated or antiquated.
We opened this liquor store just about 4 months ago, so we are fairly new on the block.
Meet Vijay Gupta. He's the director of 18th Street Liquor Store. Opening a business during a pandemic is not ideal, but Gupta says they've had some help and lots of support.
The community is really supportive, so it didn't take much for us to learn what the community really needed.
So far, business has been good. Well, for the 6 days they're allowed to open. Liquor stores and other entities that sell alcohol are limited under blue laws.
A blue law is a restriction on the sale of some item. Often it's a restriction on the sale of liquor, and those laws can be enforced by a state or by a city or by a county or by any level of government.
Experts say blue laws in Texas have been around since the 19th century. Most are now a thing of the past, except when it comes to liquor stores. In the state of Texas, liquor stores must remain closed on Sundays and some holidays, including New Year's Day and Christmas Day. When it comes to beer and wine, you can still purchase it on Sundays, just not before noon. Gupta says the law doesn't fit the times.
A lot of the things have changed from when it was passed back in the years. Lifestyles have changed. People are working odd hours to make ends meet. And I think they should also have the privilege of going out shopping on Sundays, and just like others who may not be working those hours.
Almost every legislative session, there's a push to extend liquor store hours in Texas. This year, it's under House Bill 937. But this year, there seems to be a shift when it comes to alcohol in the state of Texas. Governor Greg Abbott has signed a bill to permanently allow alcohol to go. Now Texans can take a Sunday drive to pick up their favorite mixed drink from their favorite restaurant, but they can't pick up the ingredients to make a drink themselves until Monday. We asked our Facebook fans their thoughts on opening liquor stores on Sundays. A majority said they would support the change, but some said Sundays should still be saved as a, quote, family day.
In my eyes, every day should be a family day. So when you say if liquor is involved, why can't it still be a family day? I would have a very soft corner when someone would say that we need church time on Sundays. Yes, that could be a debating factor to have, but again, then the argument would be when you already have a portion of alcohol getting sold 7 days, why would the liquor stores not be open?
Gupta brings up a good point. Most people observe religious obligations on Sundays, but the United States honors the separation of church and state. So are these blue laws constitutional?
But as long as the government can satisfy the idea that it has a secular basis, it can go ahead and enforce the law. And there's no problem with doing so simply because it happens to coincide with groups' religious beliefs. Historically, trade associations supported blue laws, as did labor unions, because they wanted a day off, at least one day that would be more or less uniform. And that happened to coincide with religious beliefs, at least of some people, a lot of people. And that's the reason they stuck around.
So what happens if a business is caught selling liquor on a Sunday? The Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission says it's a rare occurrence, but there is a protocol in place in case it happens.
If we choose to move ahead without a warning or something of that nature, the possible penalty could be either a fine up to about $300 or a potential suspension of their alcoholic beverage permit if this is a repeat behavior. However, in most cases, when we do see a violation, it's something that perhaps somebody might be new to Texas or they're unaware of the law, or it might be simply a case of their clock was simply off by 10 or 15 minutes. And so we'll issue a warning, and in almost every case that resolves the issue then and there.
It does not look like the Lone Star State will see a change in blue laws this legislative session, but Carpenter believes the pandemic could change that for the future.
But I think there's now a recognition that there's really not a good secular basis for laws like this. And moreover, it is an imposition on the liberty of businesses to decide how to run their own establishments.
Until that happens, Gupta says he and everyone at 18th Street will continue to serve Wacoans while following all laws and safety procedures.
Most of the liquor stores take a lot of safety measures. We thoroughly check ID. There shouldn't be no safety measures or concerns whether you're selling alcohol on a Sunday or a Monday or a Saturday.
Sydney Isenberg, 25 News.
Good evening, I'm Sydney Isenberg. Texas is set to receive more than 400,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccines next week. More than 3,000 are headed to McLennan County and 3,900 are headed to Bell County. Now the federal government will also be sending vaccine shipments directly to pharmacies to help more people get vaccinated. First National Bank and the Killeen Senior Advisory Board are teaming up to help out one of the area's most vulnerable populations. Brand new blankets, socks, and even food boxes are being collected for senior citizens. Some elderly citizens may be on a fixed income and aren't always able to afford the basic necessities.
Probably maybe one of our more vulnerable population, again, just with their health, limited income. So being able for them to say that they live in a community that cares about them is really important.
Now, to find out how you can lend a helping hand, visit KXXV.gov or call the Senior Center. The NCAA announcing today that San Antonio will host the entire women's basketball tournament. The move was made to help mitigate the risks of COVID-19. The tournament will feature 64 teams and runs from March 21st through April 4th. The NCAA says they will work closely with the health department there to determine safety protocols. No word yet on whether fans will be able to attend.
We all remember where we were. That moment it began to sink in. COVID-19 was no longer a joke. Now it was a threat to our lives and livelihoods. Life seemed to switch overnight. Homes changed from a place of peace to an office space that your newfound coworkers happen to live in.
As you can tell, my office has been turned into a classroom.
With that shift came stress, and lots of it.
He's so used to daddy is home, daddy is mine. And so that was a really interesting boundary.
I feel like you're accessible so much more but at the same time, you're not showing like the best you because you're not in that headspace that you would be when you're at work.
On top of that, our old coping mechanisms seemingly disappeared.
When the stress gets to you, I had that 20-minute commute home to detox it out. Whereas now if I'm stressed about something, I could turn around and run right into one of my kids.
But as we do, we persevered, we adapted, and we overcame.
So I set a time that I would work until maybe 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and I would shut my computer, and that was it. No emails, no more work. I would shut the door to the office, and I would go, help with dinner and, help with homework or whatever needed to be done, or sit down and just kind of, chat or watch TV with my kids. And then also making sure that boundary was open on the weekends.
As we come out of this pandemic and adjust to our new normal, what damage will we bring with us? If you ask the internet, it's COVID PTSD. The Mayo Clinic defines post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, as a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event. Symptoms could include flashbacks, nightmares, and severe anxiety.
PTSD is about more than just a trauma. It's about whenever we struggle to integrate that trauma in meaningful ways into the story of our life, it causes chronic stress. And it's that chronic stress associated with PTSD that really causes the difficulties in people's lives.
Will we have a form of COVID PTSD? For a majority of us, that answer is no.
For the majority of people, again, it wasn't an event. It's this extended period of time that's a collection of events. And so we probably wouldn't clinically define it as PTSD for most people. Going into the pandemic, it felt abrupt, but it really wasn't. It was staged, kind of what we experienced now looking back on it. And I think coming out of it is going to be staged as well, which will be to our benefit, allow us time to kind of adjust and adapt and figure out, what we want our new reality to be.
As we find our way back, experts say it's important to find a way to ease that pandemic stress.
Don't stress about how you de-stress. If you have a friend that, I always go and I light some candles and take a bath and that works for me, and you think, I can't do that. Whenever I light candles, I'm worried the house is going to burn down. And they get stressed about the thing that's supposed to make them unstressed. And so whatever works for you is the best answer.
While we may be nearing the edge of the woods, we are not leaving this unprecedented time empty-handed.
I think what I anticipate for us is a hyper awareness of germs and cleanliness, which is going to be a great thing. Just like in many ways it was for the Depression. Having people learn to be more mindful of their money probably was a good thing for our economic health as a country. And for us, the generations experienced the pandemic, being more mindful of hand washing, and if you're not feeling well, not going into work sick,
At minimum, most can agree the pandemic has brought on one thing: a changed perspective.
I mean, there are a lot of bad things that happen with this pandemic, but there are also a lot of good things that I now appreciate.
I'm going to appreciate people more. I'm going to appreciate hugs more. Being able to just shake somebody's hand. I've always been one of those that loves a firm shake, a handshake. And once we're able to do that again, it's going to be like, oh my God! Yay!
The resiliency of taking the family through it, of finding a way to get ourselves through it, of dealing with the fear, the anxiety, and just made our marriage a lot stronger, even than it already was. We finish each other's sentences now, or we finish each other's ideas. We're like, we got to do this. We got to be attentive to that. Yeah.
Ideas and actions that will affect us for better or worse as we move into post-pandemic life.
No matter what is out there, you have to be able to live your life. We can't stop everything.
For 25 News, I'm Sydney Isenberg.